Okay, so last time we saw how to write a simple add function and how to call it from the main, right? And we saw the output. I also explained the two different ways by which we can write the function. One is before the main and another is after the main, right? So if you are writing any function after main, then you must write function prototype for that one. And if you are writing a function before main, then function prototype is not required. Okay, let's see one or two more programs based on the same functions. So let's write one question. Write a program for reverse of a number, right? So you know the reverse of a number program, right? For example, 1 2 3 4 is entered, then it should give me 4 3 2 1. So this program we want to do, but with the help of function. So let's go over here. Okay. So first of all, I'll declare one variable, let's say n, for entering the number. And second thing, let's say here I'm saying reverse number, okay, declaring, by which I'll be calling the function. With the printf statement, I'll display, enter the number, nf %d and %n. Okay, so we have taken the number. Now it's time to call the function so that that particular function will going to reverse the number. So I'll say reverse is equal to let's say, we will write one function that is reverse number, okay, this particular function, and to this function we will going to pass our n. So this is the value n which we are passing to this particular function, and it will going to reverse the number. Okay, now here we are writing the function after the main, okay, after the main. So we need to write the function prototype for that one. Now at left hand side, if you see here, there is an integer number, so this particular function will going to return the integer value. Now after this, printf the reverse is %d, reverse is %d, and just give that particular variable name. Okay. Let's write the function definition over here. So return type will be int, and the function name is what, reverse number, okay, and in this we are taking n. Now here we will write the logic to reverse that particular number, and then after that we will return that reverse of number to the main method, right? Now first of all, since we have called from here and we have written the function after the main, so we'll write here function prototype. So what is the function prototype? Function prototype means what? The name of the function, its a return type, I mean its entire signature, and what different types of parameter it's taking. So the return type is what, integer, then the name of the function is what, reverse number, and in this it's taking only one parameter, and that is of integer type. So I've written function prototype, and then let's define it. So how to define it? First let's declare the variable like remainder, and then we'll make here a reverse number, right? And now what we will do, while the same this program we have done with the loop also, right? So while n is greater than 0, Here remainder, first we will get remainder is equal to n mod 10. Okay, and then so let's say suppose we are having a number 153. 153. So output should be what? 351. So at this particular place, what we will get first? So at this particular place, we will get 3. Right? 3. Now we got this particular number. We will say what reverse is equal to, okay, reverse into 10 plus this particular remainder. Now reverse into 10, when we will do, it will going to generate certain number, and since reverse we have not initialized at about 0. Okay, so we must initialize as 0 over here. So what we will do, sorry, here reverse is equal to 0, otherwise it will take the garbage value, and then the garbage value and plus this remainder it will going to add. So we have taken that. Okay, now we will reduce that number, so n will be equal to n by 10. N is equal to n by 10, and this will continue till n is greater than 0, right? And then finally, once this particular task is over, this loop bracket is, this is while bracket, so I think this is extra. No, this is for this one. Okay, now we will going to return the reverse number which we have got now. This will going to return reverse, return reverse. Okay, and this function will going to return the reverse number, and then it will come where, it will come over here, it will store the value, and then it will going to display it. So let's run this particular program. Bracket is missing. This particular bracket is, okay, that is extra bracket one. Enter the number. The reverse number is 351. So this is a simple program. I mean, we have written the function after the main for reverse of a number, and since we have written, we have called the function after the main, that's why we have written function prototype for this particular function. Whether this program is clear to all of you? Is there any doubt in this? Okay, one more thing. Here we are passing one parameter. This is called about actual parameter. This is a function call, right? And this parameter is called as our actual parameter. We are passing actual parameter over here. Now the function which we have written over here, this is called as a formal parameter, which will take that particular number, right? Which will take that particular number, which will be passed from there. So it's like copy of this particular number will be created, and it will be passed to this particular variable, and then it will do the operation on this one. This is a formal parameter, and this is a function definition. Okay, so if there is any doubt, please ask me, otherwise we'll move ahead. Where to submit the assignment? Okay, we'll tell later. Yeah, is there any doubt? Okay, let's go there. Now we can write a function. Let's say we can write a function for checking whether the number is number is this one, I mean the prime number or not. Okay, for that we can write the function. So function for program for checking number is prime or not, prime or not, right? So this is also, I mean, the entire stuff is same. What you will have to do, a prime number program, you know, right? The logic of prime number, you know. Now what you have to do, you have to write a function in the form of function. So that particular function you need to pass one integer number, right? Integer number, and then on that particular number the operation will be performed. So you can write a check prime function. For example, let's say int check prime, a function like this, and this function will take integer parameter, right? And finally it should return one or zero. Let's say if it will return one, when it will return one, let's say we are returning one to check that it's a prime number. So if the value return is one in the main, we can check, and if value is one, we can say that the number is prime number. And if we will going to return zero, then we will say that the number is what, it's not a prime number, right? So depending on that particular return number, we can say whether the number is prime number or not. Only thing here, you will have to write the logic. So let's write this particular program. So again, here I write this particular function as and I'll take the number. I'll not write this reverse number. What I'll do here, I'll change the name of the function. I'll say check prime. Means taking the same variable, and then here I'll write if n is equal to 1, and we'll say number is prime. Else printf number is not prime. Let's write the check prime function. So check prime, here we'll take a number, I mean that will be passed from the main. It will remove check prime. What we will do over here, that number is passed from the main function to at this particular place, right, in the variable n. Now we have to take this number and we have to do the testing. So I'll declare one int variable I. I'll write for I equal to 2, I less than n, I plus plus. If n mod I is equal to 0, then what? Then we will break it, okay, first, or we can simply break it. We can break this loop. So you can see here, loop will break by itself when it will reach to n, right? And it will going to break if the number is not a prime number, then it will going to break in between. So here I can check if I is equal to n. That means if I has reached up to n, that means the number is prime number. So I'm going to return 1, else I'm going to return 0. you know that the number is prime number if and only if it is divisible by 1 or itself. So many times I have explained this particular logic, right? So for example, I'll start I is equal to 2, and I will move till one number less than that particular number. I'll check from the number 3 to the n minus 1 number. With all the number, I will divide it. I will check whether it's divisible by that particular number or not. So if it's divisible, that means the number is not prime number. But if the loop will break by itself, that means after reaching to this particular condition, then that means the number is what, a prime number. Okay. And so when the value of I has reached up to n, that means the number is prime number, and we will return 1. And here what we have done, if the n is equal to 1, then we are saying number is prime, else number is not prime. So let's check this. The semicolon is missing, this one. And is there any extra bracket? Yeah, I think this one. So number, let's say 7. Again we'll run. Number is prime. Hear it. Number is prime. 4, number is not prime. In this way we can write the function program, right? And it's an easy task. I have written function prototype because the function name I have written after the main. Okay. Is there any doubt in this particular program? So you can ask me. Okay, all of you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if any doubt is there, you can ask me. I'll also give the link of my videos, right? And more problems are solved over there. Now time is very less, that's why I have to explain you at least the concept, and then I mean, at least I'll have to cover the entire syllabus, I think. So if you'll go over here, you will see more programs on the function. I'll upload more videos over there, right? So that more problems can be covered. So you can see that one also. Okay. Now let me quickly go through the program that is that involves a recursive function call. So let's go to the recursive function, and I'll explain you what you mean by recursive function. Recursive function. Okay. So a recursive function is a function. Recursive function is a function which calls itself again and again. Which call itself again and again. For example, suppose I have written one function void main. And let's say here I've declared one variable int I equal to 1, right? Now what I'm saying, printf slash n percent d, or let me remove this. Okay, I is equal to percent d. Okay, I is equal to percent d. Okay. And then here I am saying main. So if you can see here, what I've done in the main function, I am printing this printf, the I value, and then again I am calling the main function. So the call will go over here, and again it will come. It will print this particular value. Again it will come over here. It will call the main function. It will print again main function print. Right. So you can see in this way that this particular function, this particular main function is calling itself again and again, and this is called as what? Recursive function call. This is a recursive function call, right? A function which calls itself again and again. Okay, so if this is a recursive function call, what will going to happen if we will write this kind of program? What will going to happen? The thing is, this program will never going to end, right? Because it will go on calling this particular function, and then it will go in the infinite loop, and it will never going to end. So we must end this kind of program, right? If recursive function call is there, we must have a terminating condition. Okay, what do you mean by terminating condition? Terminating condition, terminating condition. Otherwise, I gave you this example, right? Otherwise, what will happen? This particular program will go in infinite loop, and it will never going to end. So this terminating condition, or it's also called as base class condition, the condition at which the program will going to stop. Okay, that means this recursive call will going to stop. So we must write one condition to stop this particular recursive function call. So let's say if I want to stop this particular function, let's say suppose here I have written I plus plus, and then what I can do over here, if I is equal to, or we can say if I is less than, let's say 10, okay, then only it will call this main function. Otherwise it will not going to call the main function. Then also uh, we can have a terminating condition, right? So remember this, that for recursive function call, the function is going to call itself again and again, and in a recursive function call we must have a terminating condition or base class condition, right? So now we will going to write a recursive function program, and we will going to print factorial of a number, okay, using recursive function call. One more thing, what is the advantage of this recursive function call? So recursive function call is a little bit faster than the normal function call, and the values are stored in the stack, so removal from the stack and all, it becomes really fast for the recursive function call. Second thing is, major advantage is, in the recursive function call, what happens, it will going to divide a large problem into a smaller problem. So if suppose this is your problem, it will going to divide your problem into smaller parts, right? Now every part, okay, every smaller part will be of the similar nature of the larger problem. For example, let's say I'm having the two arrays, and I want to add the numbers present in each array, right? So this number will be added by this one, this number will be added by this one. So if you see, the task is very big, right? Task is very big. We are having 1000 numbers over here, 1000 numbers over here, okay, and we want to add them. So the task is to add the 1000 numbers, but what we can do, the smaller problem is what, to add these two numbers, right? So the bigger problem is what? We have to add all the 1000 numbers, but the smaller problem is what? To add two numbers, right? And so over here, the nature of the problem is same. For example, if I'm talking about factorial of a number, let's say 5 factorial, I want to find out 5 factorial is 120. Now the 5 factorial is nothing but it's 5 into 4 factorial. Okay, 5 into 4 factorial. If you calculate the 4 factorial and multiplied by 5, we'll get the same number. And this is nothing but 4 into 3 factorial. Okay, and this 3 factorial is nothing but 3 into 2 factorial, and this 2 factorial is nothing but 2 into 1 factorial, and this 1 factorial, and this 1 factorial is nothing but 1 into 0 factorial. You know that 0 factorial is what? 1. So this could be my base class condition. And if you see here, the larger problem was 5 factorial. To determine the 5 factorial, we had divided into several smaller problems. Okay, several smaller problems, but every small problem is of the similar nature. Okay, of the similar nature of the big problem, that is to calculate the 5 factorial. The way we're going to calculate the 5 factorial will remain the same for calculation of the 2 factorial, 3 factorial, right? So all the smaller problem which we have divided will have the same nature as of that is the big problem. And this particular phase, so every recursive function call is having two phases. One is the expansion phase. So this is called as the expansion phase. Okay, this is the expansion phase. So here it will going to divide the bigger problem into smaller problems. Now every smaller problem solution will be collected. So in the compression phase, second one phase will be what? Compression phase, where the solution will be collected from every smaller part. So for example, this 0 factorial will give me what? 1. So now this 1 into 1 will go over here, this 1 factorial. Now 2 into 1, so 2 will go at this particular place, 2 factorial, right? Now 3 into 2, 6, so 6 will go at 3 factorial. Okay, now 4 into 6, 24, so 24 will go at this particular place, 4 factorial. Now 5 into 24 will go over here, and that will become 120, right? So in a recursive function call, we will be having two phases. That is, one is the expansion phase, and second will be what? The compression phase. In the compression phase, the solution of the every step will be taken and it will be collected, right? And finally, the final solution will be given to the main function from wherever the function call has taken place. So this is the process of the recursive function call. So let's see here. Please mute all of you. Anurag. Okay. So now we will going to write factorial of a number using recursive function. Factorial of a number using recursive function. See, since the time is very less, so I'll be explaining the concept and 2-3 problems, and then other problems I'll solve in the video and I will give it to you, okay, so that you can see anytime in the night also, because we have to cover the syllabus, right? And before UT, at least if all the chapters are covered, then it will be great. So that's my aim. We should be able to cover the entire syllabus. Even if in the lecture we are solving of each concept 2 problems, 3 problems, then also the extra problems I can give you in the recording, and then I can give you the link so that you can view at any time. Okay, whatever the important question for the exam will be there. So whether all of you understood this thing? Okay, so we'll do in this way, because in the next week I only I am having. So by next week I am aiming that I should be able to finish my entire syllabus. and then we'll see after the UT, whenever we'll get some time, obviously we can go through the further parts, right? But you know that from 14 or 15 onwards the UT will be there, and let's say from 25, 26 onward, to maybe from 26 onwards your Viva will be there, and within 4 5 days it will get going to over, right? So we are having a very less time, and I request all of you to start study also properly. And whatever is the remaining problem, definitely I'll provide the video for that one, right? So I mean you can study anytime, and if you want we can take some extra lecture also, maybe on the Sunday, right? If you all are agree to me, then definitely we can go ahead with the Sunday extra lecture, and we can cover more things over there. Okay, so now let's see this factorial of a number using recursive function. Now what we will do, always remember how to write a recursive function program. Recursive function. So you divide into two parts. Any recursive function program divide into two parts. First is the bigger problem, which you will going to divide into smaller parts, and the last part should be the second part should be your the terminating condition. So you must identify in the start only which is your terminating condition, where your program will going to terminate. That you must identify in the beginning only, otherwise your program will not going to terminate. Okay, so you must identify in the beginning only where your program must terminate, and after that, for example, now the job is what? To find out n factorial. So here we know that when n will become 0, then the factorial will be what? 1. Okay. And when n is greater than 0, sorry, I'll write in this way. Okay. So it will be 1 when n is equal to 0, right? And when n is greater than 0, I'll write this particular problem in this way: n into n minus 1 factorial. Just now we saw that 5 factorial will be what? 5 factorial I can write into 5 into 4 factorial, right? So 5 into n minus 1, 5 minus 1, 4 factorial, right? 5 into 5 minus 1 factorial. So this is nothing but 5 into 4 factorial. So similarly 4 factorial I can write 4 into 3 factorial. 3 factorial, 3 into 2 factorial, right? 2 into 1 factorial, and 1 into 0 factorial, right? You can also terminate on 1, no problem on that. If you want, you can terminate on 0, right? So okay, so here if you see, there are two parts. One is the terminating condition. This is called the base class condition or terminating condition, and this is the second part where we will going to divide the number. So you will have to write in f and else part. That's it. That will solve your recursive function problem. So let's go ahead. As include, I'll first write over here so that I can explain you, and then we can write on online compiler. Okay. Int fact. Okay. I'm declaring function prototype int fact. It will be a reverse function, and it will take one integer number, and it will going to return me the integer number. From here I'll declare one int n. Okay, and what we will say, printf enter n, scanf, ampersand n, and then my function name is what, fact. So I'll make it as, let's say, factorial. So I'll call that function n is equal to factorial n, and whatever is the factorial, it will going to calculate for this particular number. It will insert inside this n variable. So we'll print at the end, printf factorial is equal to %d n. This will be my main function. Now I'll write the recursive function over here, int factorial, name of the function is what, factorial, and int n. Okay, so what I have done, I have divided my problem, that is to get the factorial of any number, into two parts. One is this particular and second part is this one, right? So I'll write first part into if block. So I'll say if n is equal to 0, return 1, else you can see what is the second part. Second part will be n into n minus 1 factorial. Okay, n into n minus 1 factorial I have written over here. So I'll write the same thing, and the second must be with the help of recursive function call. Okay, so in the second we have to do the recursive function call. So let's go ahead. Else the name of the function is factorial of, sorry, else return n into factorial of n minus 1. Okay, else return n into factorial of n minus 1. So for example, if the number is 5, let's say if the number is 5, it will go over here, it will check whether n is equal to 0. No, it's 5, right? So it will come in else part and it will say what, 5 into factorial of 4. Okay, 5 into factorial of 4. But same thing, right, which we have written over here, 5 into factorial of 4. Then this 4 factorial, I mean, it will go, this 4 will go over here, right? Because this is a recursive function call. So our function is calling itself again and again. So this factorial function, within the function, we need to call the function again. So the factorial, I am passing 4. 4 will come over here. It will again check if n is equal to 0. No, it will go to else part. Now this time what it will do? This it will going to divide into 4 into factorial of 3, right? Now this 3 will go over here. It will again check whether n is equal to 0. No, it's 1. So what it will do? It will call 3 into factorial of 2, right? And this will going to call 2 into factorial of 1, and this will going to call 1 into, so you can reduce one call, you can terminate here also, right? 1 into factorial of 0. So no need to go for factorial of 0. I mean, you can terminate this at 1 also. So one recursive call will be saved. So what will happen? I mean, 1 into factorial of 0. Now this time it will going to return what? 1. So this will going to return 1. So this will become the expansion phase. This is the expansion phase. Now the compression phase. So compression phase, what will happen? 1 will be given at this particular place. This will have 1 value, 1 into 1. So 1 into 1 will be 1 at this particular place, 1 into 1. 2 into 1, 2. So here 2 will come. 3 into 2, 6. Here 6 will come, right? 4 into 6, 24. And then finally 5 into 24. That means what? 120. So 120 will be returned at this particular place, right, in n. And then we are printing over here. So this is my program, factorial of number using recursive function call. So I hope all of you have understood this particular concept and how we can write a factorial recursive function. Is there any issue? All of you understood? If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Okay. So I hope you will be able to write, or you want me to type on online compiler, or whether you will be able to write, then I can cover another problem. Yes, all of you want me to write on the online compiler? Okay. Let's see. I remove everything. So here I'm writing factorial prototype, factorial function prototype. Okay. So my function name is factorial. It will going to return me integer value, and the return type is what? Integer. I'm taking one n number, and here I am saying calling that particular function factorial. I'm passing the n value, and this particular function will take n value. It will calculate using the recursive function call factorial of n, and it will return over here. So this I will going to print now. So factorial equal to x1d n. So this my function call is over. Okay, we have written over here. Now let's define the function. Int factorial int n. Now here what we will do, we using the recursive function call, we have to do this one, right? So we have divided the function into two parts. If n is equal to, let's terminate on the 1 only. Okay, so don't wait for 0, because we know that 1 factorial will also be 1. So I'll return 1, and then else I'm writing over here return n into factorial of minus 1. Okay, so this is my program. Let's check. Enter the number 5. The factorial is what? 120. 4 factorial is what? 24. Okay, so this is simple program. I hope all of you have understood this. Okay, let's write one more program using this. So what we can do, if somebody will enter, let's say n is equal to 5. So this should give me 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. Okay, it should give me the addition. So we'll do this particular program with the help of function. So we know that what will be our terminating condition. If somebody will enter 5, then when it will reach to 1, we should terminate. Okay, we should terminate. So it's like, we'll say sum of 5 numbers, right? Recursive sum. So if, let's say here I'll put n. So if n is equal to 1, I will return 1. Okay. Else what I'll do, n plus, and whatever is the function name, let's say sum of n minus 1. Okay. So we'll do this one if when n is greater than 1. When n is greater than 1. So we will do this one. For example, if it will be 5, then this will become 5 plus sum of 4. Right? Then this will give me what? 4 plus sum of 3. Right? So it's like this will be the expansion phase. This will give me 3 plus sum of 2. Okay, recursive function call. 2 plus sum of 1. And when this sum of 1 will come, we are returning 1, right? So this will complete our expansion phase. In the compression phase, this every problem solution will be collected. So this solution problem of this one will be what? 1, right? So 2 plus 1 3. Solution of this one will be 3. 3 plus 3 6. Solution of this one will be 6. 6 plus 4 10, right? And then 5 plus 10 ultimately will get 15. So that will be our compression phase. So let's write this particular program. You can see this particular condition which I have written. Okay. So let's write this. So here I'll write, let's say, recursive sum. Okay, recursive sum. And here I'll change the name, recursive sum. Sum equal to recursive sum. So if n is equal to 1, we'll return 1. Else we'll say n plus, and we call the function. Okay, recursive call. So recursive sum and minus 1. So this will going to complete our program. Let's run this. I'll enter 5 15. Okay, let me run one more time. 10 15. So it has given me the output. Whether all of you understood this recursive sum program? Yes, is there any doubt? You can ask me. So there are 2-3 more problems which are important in this recursive function call. You can study. I'll send you the video also. Okay, I'll make the video and send it to you. One is the Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series using this. Then you can have second one as x raised to y, okay, or a raised to n program using this recursive function call. So where you will going to stop in this one when n will become 0. So and when n is equal to 0, then a raised to 0 will be what? 1, right? So that will be your terminating condition. And you can also do a reverse of number using recursive function call. So only this much programs are important. Out of these only one will come, right? So Fibonacci, x raised to y, reverse of a number, okay, then some recursive sum, and then the factorial of a number. So out of these one problem may come, you can prepare it. Okay, now let's go to some other concept, and then we will study one very important thing, that is call by value and call by reference. Call by value and call by reference. Call by reference. Okay. Okay. So to study this call by reference, we need to study first pointer. Okay. And for many people, they it's this becomes very difficult chapter, but it's very easy chapter. Okay, the pointer. But now I am explaining with respect to this function so that I can cover this particular problem, and then later we can study more about this pointer, right? um, what do you mean by pointer? For example, suppose I am having one variable x is equal to 5, right? This is my normal variable. It's my normal variable, and it's having some values. So what the compiler will do, compiler will going to allot a space of 2 byte, okay, 2 byte for integer. The name it will give as what, x. Let's say the address is what, 400, and the 5 value it will write what here. Okay, so the address is what, 4000, and name of this particular address is what, x, and the value is 5. So with the help of x, we can access this particular value. So if I say sum is equal to sum plus x, so here x means what, 5, right? Now with the help of this address number also we can get this particular 5. Okay, with the help of this address also we can get the 5. Now how to store the address of any variable, so if the integer number is there, let's say int x equal to 5, this number is there, and I want to store the address of this particular number, I can declare one integer pointer. So let's say I am declaring int star y, or let me give the name as p, pointer star p. So this p, since I've declared as a star p, it's an integer pointer which will going to point to this particular location. So we can do in this way, p is equal to ampersand x. So when I am saying ampersand x, that means I am storing the address of x in p. So this p will get the value as what, 4000, because I am storing the address of this x variable. So if suppose you are living in one particular house, right, I am having two ways to meet you. One is I can directly access you, I mean I can directly call you by your name. Second thing, if I know your address, I can go to your address, right, and I can meet you. So this is the same example. I mean, if I want to access this file, I can access by name, or if I know at which particular address this file is kept, then I can go and I can take this file with the help of that address. So if you want to store any address of any particular variable, you need to declare a pointer kind of variable. So pointer is a special type of variable. Okay, this pointer here I've declared as a pointer p. So pointer is a special kind of variable which can hold the addresses of other variables. So please remember this. Pointers are special. Pointers are special kind of variables which can hold addresses of other variables. Okay. For example, over here we are holding the address of x in p. Okay, and p is what, a pointer variable. How to declare a pointer variable? By using that star, right? So there are two operators, one is star and second is ampersand. Ampersand is called as address of operator, and this is called as value at operator, okay. So if I write in this way, let's say y, that means value at y is what, okay. If I write ampersand x, address of y, right? So with the help of two operators we can do the job. How to declare a pointer variable? By using the star. So if you want to store the address of integer value, you can store, you can declare as an integer pointer. If you want to store the address of character value, you can declare a character kind of pointer. Okay, if you want to store address of float value, you can declare a float kind of variable. Okay, so let's see one program. Let's see one program of reversing of a number. Okay, and not reversing of a number, let's say swapping of a number. Swapping of a number. Swapping of a number. So this swapping of a number program will do by two ways. One is call by value. Okay, call by value, and second, call by reference. Call by reference. So let's do this one. And this program is very, very important. Okay, very, very important. Now here return type I'll make void because I don't want to return anything. So I'll say void swap function, and this will take two integer variables. Here I'll take int a, b, enter two numbers. Enter two numbers. Then we're going to enter two numbers, and we need to store them in some variable. So we'll say %d, and %a, and %y, b. Right? Now what we will do, we will going to call that swap function, and we'll pass both the values. Okay. For example, if either we enter in A5 and in B10, then A should get 10 and B should get 5, right? So it should reverse the values. Now what we will do, before calling the swap function, we're going to print the value of that one so that it will be clear. So I'll say over here, before swapping, printf A is equal to %d, B is equal to %d, A, B. And then printf after swapping. After swapping. And then we're going to print A and B values, right? So this I've written over here. First we'll take both the values, and then before swap function call, we will print the values, and after swap function call, we are going to print the values again. So obviously we should see the swapping of both the numbers. So now we'll write void swap, and it's taking int A, int B. Here I'll take one variable, int, temporary variable for swapping it. I'll say temp is equal to A is equal to B, and B is equal to temp. So I've done the swapping, right? And here I'll write printf inside swap function, Inside swap function, we'll check what is the value of a and b. Printf a is equal to %d and b is equal to %d. Inside swap function, we swap both the numbers and we will going to print a and b values. Let's run this particular program. Oh, these double quotes are there. I'll just remove. Anywhere else? Here. Okay. Still anywhere there? This one is missing. This one I removed. Okay. Enter two numbers. So I'll enter 5, I'll enter 10. If you see here, before swapping, the numbers are what? A is equal to 5, B equal to 10. Inside swap function, then what we have done, we have printed this one before swapping, A equal to and B equal to value. Then we have called the swap function. So inside swap function, A is equal to, we have done any mistake, A is equal to coming this and B equal to 0. Yeah, we have not printed that. I wrote this program very fast. I didn't see properly. Okay, we have not printed the values. Okay, 5 and 10. Yeah, if you see here, enter two number 5 and 10. Before swapping, A is equal to 5, B is equal to 10. Inside swap function, now it has changed. A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 5. Okay, so it has changed inside the swap function. After swapping, that means this particular part in the main function, if you see, the values are still same. A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 10. It has not changed. The values are still same. So but in the swap function it's happening, but here in the main function where we wanted to swap it, after the function call it must swap it, right? But here what we are seeing that it has not swapped. So remember one thing, the function call which we are making over here, this is with the help of actual parameters, right? Actual parameters. And I have told you that whenever function call will happen, it will pass the duplicate values. It will first create the duplicate values of A and B, and that values will be passed to these two functions. That is a formal parameter. Okay, so these formal parameters will receive the duplicate values, not the original values. It's like if I am having certain notes of computer programming, and if I am taking the xerox of that one and I am giving all of you, I am distributing it, and then tomorrow whatever you will be making the changes with the pen on that particular notes, that will not going to reflect on my original notes, right? Because original notes I'll be having, and whatever stuff we are doing, that is on the duplicate copies, on the xerox copies. So that will not going to reflect it on my original copy. But if I'll give my address of my original copy, then obviously you can go to that particular address, and if you're going to change it, then it will going to reflect it. So this is called as call by value. We are calling the function by call by value, right? So whenever a function call happens by call by value, duplicate values of the variables will be created, and that values will be passed to the function. Okay, and whatever changes we are done on that particular those variables in that function will not be reflected on the actual parameters. So remember this concept, this is very important. and hence that's the reason here the swapping is not taking place in the main function. Clear? Whatever changes will be done, that is done on the duplicate copies, that is on the Xerox, right, on the formal parameters, which will not going to reflect on the actual parameters. Whether this concept is clear to all of you? Okay, so I need to do what if I want to really make the changes. If I want to really make the changes, I must do it by passing the address. Okay, by passing the address of the variable. So call by reference, how we will do? If I want to make it call by reference, I'll pass from here the address of A and the address of B. Address of A and address of B. So we are passing now the addresses. We are not passing the duplicate values. In fact, we are passing the addresses of A and B. So if addresses of A and B is passed, so these two values now no longer will going to hold the addresses because they are the normal variables. So I told you, if we want to store the addresses, we must declare the variables as what? Pointer variables. So now we will going to declare a pointer variable. So this will be star A and this will be star B. Now it can hold the addresses of A and B. So here in place of A, I can say temp is equal to star A. That means whatever is the value pointed by A, okay, whatever is the value at pointed by A, that value should get stored inside A. Then the value at A will get replaced by the value at B, and then the value at B will get replaced by temp. And here let's print the value of A and B, right? So if you're going to print the value of A and B, we will going to get the reverse values. Let's check it. Okay, one more thing. Now even the function call will change. Okay, so function call is, it's like it's taking two pointer variable. So it's taking int star kind of variable. It's now it's not taking a simple variable. It's taking int star kind of values. Run it. Enter two numbers 5 and 10. Is there any issue? Sorry. Let's again run it. Before swapping, why it's showing 0? But we have entered 10. So is there any issue in B? Let me take 4 and 5. It's not taking 10. I don't know why. Okay. So now if you see here, before swapping, A is equal to 4 and B is equal to 5. Inside swap function 5 4, right, it got swapped. And even after swapping, right, after swapping function call inside the main, we are seeing that A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 4. So actually what is happening over here, when we are doing a swap function call, here we are passing the addresses of A and B. We are not passing the or duplicate values of A and B, right? We are actually passing the addresses of A and B, and hence whatever changes we will do inside this particular function, it will going to reflect on the on that particular location, right? And that means where the original copy is kept, at that particular location it will going to reflect, and hence whatever changes we'll do on the formal parameter, that will be going to reflect it on the actual parameters. And that's why it's changing the values inside the main function also. So this is called as call by reference. Okay, earlier was call by value, where you will pass the values with the help of duplicate values, right? And a copy of values will be sent to the other variable format parameters, which will, whatever changes we will going to do on that format parameters will not going to reflect on the original parameters. But if we'll do if we'll pass with the reference, okay, this is also called a pass by address or pass by reference. So if we pass the variable with the help of addresses or references, then whatever changes we will make inside this swap function will going to reflect on these original variables also. So whether you understood the concept of call by value and call by reference, all of you? So call by reference we do with the help of addresses and pointer, and normal call by value we do with the our normal values, right? We don't require their address and pointer. Remember, pointer is what? Pointer is a special variable which can hold the addresses of other variable. Okay, so a lot of things we have covered. You please revise this whenever you get time. Okay, and in the next lecture we will take a few examples of pointer, right? More, and then we can go ahead with the structure, right? Structure and union, and then one more part is remaining, that is a string, right? So hope in the next week we'll be able to cover that. Okay, Jyotirma is there?
Yes, sir.
Please take the attendance.
Okay.